and welcome to Educational Foundation 605, Educational Research. My name is Greg Sherman and I am the instructor and designer of this online experience for you. And I am very, very happy to be facilitating this class this semester. This is one of the most important classes I think that any student enrolled in a graduate education program can take. It has to do with educational research and all the skills and knowledge and attitudes surrounding it. And that's very, very important. Research is really the language of scientific thinking. And scientific thinking is, in the broad sense, one of the most important things that can be influenced by being a graduate student and learning what you need to learn to succeed in the courses and growing as individuals and as professionals in the educational field. I'll tell you a little story about how I got involved in educational research formally. It was actually when I was in your position as a graduate student. I was already teaching 8th and 9th grade biology, and I taught at those grade levels and in that subject area for approximately 10 years in Mesa, Arizona. And I was a graduate student, and I was asked in one of my classes to consider some research problems or more broadly, things that I wondered about as an educator. And it was really good timing for me to be encouraged to think like that because recently in one of my classes I was showing a film on the scientific method, and I remember watching my students I pay attention to the film, and what I found really interesting about it is that the film was about this young girl who was about the same age as the students who were viewing the film in my class. She was about 14 years old. And the film was about her walking home from school every day and passing by this very large conservatory, which in this context means a giant greenhouse. I'm not sure where she lived that she would pass by a giant greenhouse, but she did. And she went into the greenhouse and noticed a lot of different plants growing with more success than others. And she looked at the different kinds of light that was available to the plants inside of the greenhouse. And she wondered whether the different quality of light affected the plant growth and in what way. And so the movie focused on how she thought through designing an experiment. She decided to test different types of light, different colors of light, and she controlled variables and collected data. And so the short film walked through the process with the 14-year-old girl as the only character, human character, in the film. What I thought was interesting, though, is that the narrator was not the girl. The narrator was a professional adult female narrator. And she constantly referred to the girl in the film by her name, and if I remember correctly, her name was Sarah. And she referred to Sarah in the third person, and so essentially all of the narration was talking about Sarah and what Sarah was doing. And as I was watching my students get perhaps a little bit bored with the film, I wondered if they might be more compelled to pay attention, or they might want to pay attention if Sarah was the one narrating the film. If the 14-year-old girl was the one saying, I wondered this, and then I did this and this. So having a young narrator and changing the narration slightly so that it reflected speaking in the first person, I wondered if that might influence or affect how my 14-year-old students would view, pay attention to, and actually learn from the film. And so I actually went about trying to test the hypothesis that the narrator speaking in the first person as a young girl would be more compelling and would be more effective for my students than the more traditional and conventional adult professional narrator. And I took the film and I removed the narration and I changed the words in the script and I had it re-narrated by a 14-year-old, by one of the students in one of my other classes, and I had it so I try to control variables with all the different narrations, and I made different versions of Sarah speaking in the first person or Sarah speaking in the third person, as if it was just a young narrator talking about the girl on the screen, or the adult older narrator. I had to re-record all the narration even for the adults because I didn't have the same incidental music, and I didn't want that to be a variable that confounded anything that happened. So I did all of that, and I researched the variables that I might want to measure in terms of learning, or at least recall of some of the information, as well as some of the attitudes that my students had about the films, and as well as a construct that I learned about when I did some library research on how some researchers were measuring the amount of mental effort that young learners sort of spent trying to pay attention and learn from a situation. So I did all of that as part of my graduate course experience. But what was great about it for me is that I got to practice being a scientist, and perhaps most importantly, I got to see firsthand how thinking more scientifically about my job, about what I was doing, was having a really big impact on my own practice and improving my own practice. And so I will actually post a copy of the paper that I wrote as a result of that experience. I'll post it on the course website. As I sort of hinted at, I got to learn and apply skills associated with scientific thinking in a way that helped me improve my own practice. It helped me learn more about conducting library research in the field of education. It helped me think more about making the kinds of things I think about when I make decisions about the type of resources I choose to implement for a particular type of learner. And it helped me pay attention more to my practice. And one of the things that I hope you learn early on in this class is that being observant, or paying attention to the natural world, to the world around you, is, first of all, that is the foundation. That's the bedrock of scientific thinking. That's where the scientific method begins, is making observations and trying to make sense of them. And isn't that in a way what we kind of do every day? Maybe not in a systematic way, but we do it. In this course, it's going to emphasize scientific thinking through learning about research, through learning how to do research, and learning how to discern better research from less good research, and then designing research yourself. To be honest with you, given the scope of this class, this is more of an introduction to educational research, and you will not be conducting any original research on your own outside of critiquing studies that have already been done. But this course, I hope, could certainly spark some wonder in you and some strategies for doing something about that wondering. So it's a very important class, and it really speaks to the foundation of scientific thinking, which speaks to the heart of you as a graduate student right now. Most of you are earning a Master of Science degree in curriculum and instruction, or a related field. It might be special education or elementary education. And if you think about it, it's a degree in science. It's a Master of Science. And so this truly is a foundational class, perhaps the foundational class in your graduate student journey. And so with that, I'd like to spend a few moments now providing you with an overview of the course website, as well as a kind of pointing you in the right direction for starting on the week 1 orienting activities. And hopefully by the end of this orientation, you'll feel very comfortable interacting with the course website and knowing where things are and knowing how the course in general is intended to operate. And after you're done reviewing all of the information and procedures for the course, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me via the phone or email, and I am happy to help you figure out and help you get oriented to this online experience.